Hey guys, and welcome in today's episode where we are going to take a look at what is your hardware in November of 2023 when it comes to gaming, and we are going to go straight to the source here for gathering all this data. That of course means Steam, because Steam as of 2023 has more than 120 million active users, which is absolutely insane as a number, and they basically have the tabs on everyone's computer and they know what hardware you are gaming on. So this being said, I think that other than Windows itself, basically this is the go-to platform where you want to compare some stats like the ones we are going to do today. So this is the survey as it is in November 2023, and starting things off here, we can start with, of course, the video cards, and I see a huge split in between Nvidia and AMD. Basically, Nvidia, it's more than 75% of you guys have actually run Nvidia this year, which is absolutely amazing. Only a meager 16% of people have been using AMD GPUs. I can't say I blame you guys. I'm also an Nvidia fan. I love AMD as well, and with the help of this channel, basically I've tested out Nvidia and AMD products, and at the moment I'm gonna stick with Nvidia just because I have one bought in the GPU apocalypse. I'm talking about the 3090, and it is still a damn good card. But I would see this basically increase in the upcoming years if FSR3 is going to do its job and basically allow people to have access to more performance without having to pay extra for them running their basically existing GPUs. And that's pretty nice to see, unlike the DLSS 3, which of course, basically you would have to have an NVIDIA GPU in order to run DLSS 3. Now, at the present moment, the technology isn't quite there yet, but I'm definitely seeing that they're taking huge leaps forward into trying to implement this into more and more titles. And not only that, but of course to optimize the overall efficiency and performance of this moving forward. Right, so as it sits right now, 75%, quick math on that, it's around 90 million people are actively engaged in using NVIDIA GPUs in their rigs, which is absolutely amazing. Of course, this is taking into considerations other devices, not only PCs, but this is definitely an eye-opener, so to say, because 16% is roughly around 19 billion people using AMD products, and that is a huge difference between AMD and basically Nvidia. The thing that intrigues me a bit here, it's actually only this little split here between AMD and Intel. As you can see, it's around 8% between the two, and the fact that AMD basically has, had a very long crack, and they're doing this for a very long time where they're making discrete GPUs, and Intel is basically just put its foot in the door with the Intel Arc series. This is a very small gap to see in between the two manufacturers. Of course, we're taking into consideration here not only the discrete GPUs, but also the integrated graphics, but definitely only 8% between the two. That is saying something. All right, so moving away from this, we are going to go into the PC processor usage by manufacturer. And as you can see right here, we have Intel sitting at a high 65% and basically AMD at around 35% right there. And that's a big split, don't get me wrong, but it's not as big as the ones as we have seen right here from Nvidia and AMD with the GPU side of things. But that doesn't surprise me at all. Anyway, I think that maybe in the coming years, if AMD sticks to the game there, probably this split is going to be more evened out, with people opting to go from Intel to AMD, with some obvious advantages there. I mean, I love AMD for basically being the underdog and delivering a lot more performance for a lot less money, I should say, than Intel, because, well, Intel has been sitting on their high thrones for years, and they basically gave us very, very little increments in performance for a lot of money on the table, and I definitely hate them for that. Also, they were basically extorting us for more money because their generations were only supported for 2 to 3 years with the socket, so that meant that after 3 years of using the latest and greatest CPU, if you want to go on the upgrade path, then definitely you would have to upgrade the motherboard itself again, because, well, Intel decided the socket is not good enough. While AMD allowed you to have more from the get-go, the AM4 I think was rode on for around 5 years before they changed the socket to the new AM5, so that's definitely going to give you more buck for your money, because you're going to have more support for the CPU that you have bought right now, considering that you are going to compare with something like Intel. So, yeah, prices. We have to talk about price, because performance is one thing, but price is a definite different beast. Of course, the prices are quite similar between these two platforms. You have the Intel i9 4900K, which sits at 525 euros. And on the other side, you have here the AMD Ryzen 7950X3D, which sits at 580 euros. Now you're going to get better support and longevity for this with around 5 years for the EM5 platform and around 2 to 3 years with the Intel 4900K right here. You're only going to get 2 to 3 years of support for the motherboard. But hey, at the end of the year, the prices are actually quite comparable. And of course, it all comes down to you if you want to go with Intel versus AMD. So moving forward now, let's see about the overall system configurations here. Most of you guys, around 50%, are using systems that have 16 gigabytes of RAM installed, which is actually the sweet spot for gaming right now. You don't generally need more, and it is pretty good optimized for around, general tasks and as well as gaming. If you find yourself using more than 16 gigabytes of RAM, that's probably something more specific like video editing. For instance, I have 32 gigs of RAM in here, and sometimes I don't say that it doesn't feel like I have enough. It is still enough, but I can easily go over 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is being used by the Adobe Suite. So that's definitely something that indicates to me that 16 gigabytes, that means most of you guys are actually gaming on your computer, and 16 gigabytes is more or less the benchmark to go with. So taking a look here at the Intel CPU speeds, we have, wow, this is not a very big high speed overall, so to say. So people are running anywhere in between 2.3 to 269 gigahertz on their Intel CPU speeds. As you can see here, it says Intel CPU speeds. So that pretty much makes me think that not a lot of you guys have actually went out and bought the latest and greatest when it comes to CPUs. So even though you see 65% of people using Intel, probably there's a lot of laptops out there with not that great CPUs, or I should say budget CPUs. And if we click here for more info on the CPU side of things, we see genuine Intel. All right, 66% of people are using that. And the overall CPU speeds with Windows as of November between 2.3 and 269, actually 21% of you guys actually have these speeds. 15% of you guys actually went above with 3.3 to 369. And if we look at 3.7 and beyond, around only 3% of you guys have actually went above that. So that means that not a lot of people are using actually very high-end CPUs for their gaming purposes while on Steam. If we take a look at the AMD CPU speeds with Windows here, we see that 3.3 to 369, around 13% of you guys actually achieved that with the AMD CPUs. And if we take a quick comparison here, we see around 15% of the people used the same speeds here with Intel. So Intel is definitely faring better here. And 3.7 gigahertz and up, around 10% of the people have achieved this with AMD CPUs, while only 3% of people achieve this with Intel CPUs, which kind of breaks it all down and tells the story here that basically the people who are using AMD CPUs are actually buying more higher end stuff from AMD than actually the people running Intel CPUs. Now correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but this is definitely how it looks to me at a first glance. Another factor that I see right here, right off the gate, is definitely that AMD CPUs actually have an increase in the number of users achieving this performance here. While on the Intel CPU side of things, you also have a drop off into some of the categories here. Probably some of the people are just ditching their old CPUs for newer CPUs. So where you see an increase here, that's probably because people actually left off somewhere here. So as you can see, 2.7 to 2.99, you have an 8% drop off in people achieving this level of performance, and that's probably some of them are moving up to 3.3 to 3.69 gigahertz, or maybe probably some of them are actually ditching Intel altogether and moving over to AMD. Now this is what this table right here is telling me, and it is actually telling quite a compelling story. And if I move back here, you can actually see that it used to be 73% of the people using Intel processors, while right now it dropped down to 65%. So that means an increase for AMD, and I'm definitely hoping to see a further increase in the upcoming years. So this has been my take on what's happening in the hardware industry right now as it sits in December of 2023. And I definitely encourage you guys to leave your thoughts and comments down in the box below. I always do my best to include myself in the conversation and see what's happening out there. Alright, stay awesome, and thank you so much for choosing to watch today's video. Peace out.